Hi, my name is Christopher Dirks, and this is my case study for EDL 855. Summary of the case study. The first year assistant principal at Rocket Junior High School, Richard Inman, is from the south side of the district of where he works, and which is known for the struggles that come, and he knows of the struggles that come along with that. He has dedicated his time to create an after-school program to work with students from the south side. Richard has made an impact of the leader of a rough group and started to see some change. Later on, the leader, James, made another student hold his brass knuckles. He got called to the office to talk about his tardiness, and he got worried that he would get caught for having the brass knuckles, so he gave them to a peer. The peer's name was David. He was an honor student who was in band. He was a very good student. He was active in after-school programs. Both of them ended up getting in trouble for having possession of the brass knuckles. Part of the reason they both got in trouble was because the principal, Richard, called them both in at the same time. There was a police officer in there at the same time, and he didn't really have a choice. James' mother kind of let him just sit in there and learn his lesson. Once he got arrested, David's mother was not happy. Being an honor roll student with no history of trouble, she thought that he should not be in trouble. Richard filed to have James expelled due to the zero tolerance policy that was in place by the school district. However, he would not file David's paperwork because he felt that David was innocent, because he was kind of coerced into holding the brass knuckles. It was not anything that he did. So, legal and ethical issues. The possession of brass knuckles is a felony charge, and both students were either in possession or confessed to being in possession of the brass knuckles. Both students were then in violation of the law and were arrested for the offense. The zero tolerance policy at the school would not recognize David's innocence and therefore cause an ethical issue with Richard. David does not deserve to be in trouble. He was peer pressured into a bad situation as a 13-year-old boy. The other ethical/legal issue is the fact that Richard may be reprimanded for sticking to what he believes in and not filing the paperwork to get David expelled, but the director of secondary education said he has to. What exactly happened? An at-risk student coerced an honor roll student into possessing a weapon at school. As a result, and due to the zero tolerance policy, both students were arrested and facing expulsion. The facts. The people that were involved. These are students who of disadvantaged families that are not expected to be very successful, and are sort of expected to fail. David has broken the mold and has been a successful student that has gotten into trouble with James, and who's from the other side of the spectrum. The families were also involved. Richard, the principal, is involved, and the secondary educational director is also heavily involved. The place, it took place at Rocket Junior High, in an area that is not known for producing successful people, especially families from the south side. There are about 900 students at the school, and there are a large portion of them who are disadvantaged. The program, so Richard started his connection with these students through an after-school program where he supported them through basketball. This is a public school that is greatly in need of extra support. The information prioritized. This situation is damaging to a few different people, mainly David and Richard. James has put them both into a situation that's not good. David was there as kind of an innocent bystander who was forced to do something he knew he shouldn't be doing but didn't really have a choice. And Richard put himself out there to help James, and is kind of like feeling the repercussions for that. David's family is also at stake as they kind of had high hopes for him to do well, and they're now in a situation where he might not have that opportunity. One area where Richard could have a better understanding is the reason why there's a zero tolerance policy. So I think that if he kind of communicated a little more with the secondary education director, he might have a better idea of that. He has enough information to make a moral decision and a professional decision. And really, at the end of the day, it's about what Richard decides to do. Option one would be to do the paperwork. He could do what he's supposed to do professionally, but that could leave David in a situation where he doesn't really get to experience the successes he's kind of created for himself. Option two is to not do the paperwork, where Richard could face some reprimand and potentially losing his job, but he gets to stick to his moral compass. Option three might be to meet with the director of secondary education, where he could kind of have a better understanding of all of his options and kind of prepare himself to maybe get some union representation if he needed to. Evaluation of the options. So option one, the pros would be he gets to keep his job and he kind of followed protocol. The cons would be he wrongly accused a 13-year-old boy, not really wrongly accused, but more put him, I guess, made a bigger deal of something that he did through not really a choice of his own, and it goes against his morals. Option two, the pros would be he follows his morals and David is not wrongly punished. The cons would be he may get reprimanded and he's not following protocol. Option three, not option one, would be meeting with the director. The pros of this would be he gets all the information and he might be able to find a potential loophole. The cons would be he may not hear what he wants to hear. There might be no way around this, and it most likely leaves him with a decision where or in a situation where he still has to make a decision. The best option, in my opinion, would be option three, to meet with the director of secondary education. Although it might not lead him to a right choice, it makes sure that he exercises all of his options first. He gets all the information he needs if he's smart about how he asks questions, and he kind of prepares himself for union representation if that's where it goes. And hopefully in the end he can really make his professional versus ethical decision. The implementation of his decision. So this would start with reaching out to the director of secondary education and having a conversation with them about, hey, let's meet. Let's talk about all the options that I have. Let me get all of the information. And it really just leaves him kind of, much more informed. The hope would be that he finds a kind of a loophole in the zero tolerance policy where he can feel like he's acting ethically, potentially use union representation. But overall, it's not really the best situation to be put in. I think as a professional and as, kind of working in a district where there is a zero tolerance policy, at some level you kind of have to go with the flow. But at the same time, that's easier said than done, given this situation where David really is kind of an innocent bystander who was kind of peer pressured into doing something that he knew he shouldn't be doing. But really, I mean, he had a choice, but he's a 13-year-old boy. So I think Richard's best option is really to sit down with the director of secondary education and really try to work with them to find a way to act ethically and professionally. Thank you for listening. That's my case study.